You're listening to another ambitious entrepreneurnetwork.com podcast, the voice for entrepreneurs and small business. Now, onto the show.
Welcome to Industry Thought Leader Podcast. Stand out, be heard, influence. Want to influence real change with your message while become known as an authority in your field? Industry Thought Leader Podcast will show you how. Now, over to your host, Anne-Marie Cross.
And welcome to another episode of Industry Thought Leader Podcast, brought to you by Podcasting with Purpose, helping you to stand out, be heard, and become that influential voice in your industry with a podcast and other social media tools, which we're going to learn a little bit more about in a moment. I'm your host, Anne-Marie Cross, the podcasting queen. Now, today's show is a little bit different from the normal shows that we have. As you can see, there are other people joining me on the panel. So we've invited 3 other industry experts to our Industry Thought Leader panel. They're going to share their insights on social media trends for 2020, what you need to know about, keep doing, and maybe slightly change moving forward next year in order to stand out, to be heard, and become that authority in your field in 2020 and beyond. Now, let me introduce to you my panel. Joining us all the way from Ontario, Canada, is Julian Smith. He is the director and senior producer at JD Nevins Communication Inc. And he specializes in a number of key areas, including social advertising, digital strategy consulting, just to name a few. Now, joining us all the way from Nairobi, Kenya, we have Janet Machuka. And so thank you so much, Janet. I know it is 12 a.m. in the morning for you. So we're really honored that you'll join us today. Now, she is the marketing manager and director at Sparks Corporate Consulting. She's also the founder of Africa Tweet Chat. Digital marketing strategies, also an area that she specializes in, and she's going to be talking a little bit about AI later on in the show. And joining us all the way from Roanoke, USA, is Christina Garnett, and she's the founder and marketing strategist at Marketing Media Maven LLC. Digital strategy, inbound marketing, and social listening is something that she's an expert in, and she'll be just speaking a little bit more about that. Now, joining us behind the scenes is also Keith Keller, and he is the Twitter video specialist, and so he's going to be tweeting his heart out. So we look forward to seeing what's going on in the community behind the scenes. Now, also, as part of this, if you've got a question for one of the panelists, go ahead and leave a comment. Later on in the show, I'm going to bring that comment in, and one of the panelists, or maybe all of them, can contribute some of their expertise. All right, let's jump in. Let's start with you, Julian. One of the things that I know many businesses owners are struggling with when they see all of the different technologies and tools at our fingertips, which ones should we be using? How do we know what we should be using? And I know that you are called a multifaceted digital marketer, and the digital came later, and now people call it the marketing unicorn. So welcome to the show. Do we need to be everywhere and on every single platform? Love to hear your insights.
Okay, and first of all, Anne-Marie, thank you so much for having me, and it's so wonderful to be in the company of these wonderful guests as well. So the quick answer is, in an ideal world, yes, you are omnipresent. But let's be realistic, especially for small businesses, that's not easy. So I typically generally suggest, for people to have a clear understanding of who their audience is, which platforms that audience happen to be on most, and try to sort of focus their attention on one or two if they can. And yes, if there are tools that allow you to broadcast on multiple platforms in the way that you're doing sort of right now, and that we're sort of now live, I believe, on Facebook and LinkedIn. I think is this your first LinkedIn Live?
Yes, it is actually.
Yeah. Okay. So, right. So there's a great platform to be on. So it really depends, So for example, if you're very much a B2B service provider, I think LinkedIn is a very important platform for you to be on. If you want to look ahead into the future and let's say look at a younger generation, I would look, to, let's say, Instagram. And now, if you're really looking ahead, I would start looking at TikTok, which is really an emerging platform.
Yeah, fantastic. So let's move to Christina. One of the things that I know that you speak into is around influencer marketing, and I know that a lot of the younger market now too, you're getting a lot more influencers that are coming up and using their platform to share other companies' products and services. For businesses who are watching today that are looking at possibly adopting an influencer marketing strategy, what do you see happening in that space?
Well, there's a couple things that I'm seeing, particularly when we saw influencer marketing starting up. It was the celebrities, it was the Kardashians, it was that sort of the key demographic that everyone was already following on Instagram, and they're able to showcase the tools and products that they're using and also getting paid to use. But those are starting to look like the commercials that we've been trying to avoid on social media. So you're starting to see this really kind of push away from that macro into this micro influencer space. And for small businesses, what I would honestly look at the people who are already celebrating your brand for free, who embodies and genuinely loves your brand. I think that's also why you're starting to see small, medium, and large businesses also starting to use a lot more user-generated content. Because instead of it just being this content of, hey, you need to buy this, or hey, you need to visit us, or hey, you need to come to our website, by being able to showcase that someone already is using that brand, but it feels more authentic and genuine because it isn't a celebrity that clearly is being paid, it makes you take note. And these people are already being followed. That's the beauty of influencer marketing, is that you get to tap into the people who are already being followed by your target audience. So really kind of pushing more towards that genuine, authentic, and not really focused on, I need a celebrity, more of, I need someone that looks like my ideal customer, that feels like my ideal customer.
Yeah, fabulous. Love that. So important. Janet, let's bring you into the conversation. When we're looking at AI, what are some of the trends that you are starting to see that perhaps smaller businesses, so service-based businesses, can start to adopt moving forward?
Hi, thank you so much for giving me a chance to be here. So I'm looking at, first of all, I have to take us back to the years, way back when we used to use the maps, when you used to read in class focusing on the textbooks. There was no technology. Computers were very few in classes. And actually, that's the kind of environment I've grown from. So the current situation of technology has really made everything sound or seem like they're just in front of us. We can see them. We can see what is happening. We can see what is going on in USA as in right now. We can see where you live from, even the space. It's so interesting to actually see the world in that aspect. And so in the aspect of AI, I believe more so the industry that deals with tourism will really benefit on that aspect. Because when you look at, it's like mirroring and seeing the actual space before you even have to travel to the space.
Yes.
It's so interesting to have a look. Maybe I want to visit the Thistle in UK, and maybe I've never seen it. I only heard of it on booking.com. I actually can go ahead and search, check, and see how it goes. As in, it's like walking into a room and then walking through the living room, the kitchen, the bathroom, and everywhere, so that at least to feel how does it feel like? How is it? How does it look like? What is the ambience? And so I believe the small businesses can leverage on that in the aspect that instead of making people feel like they're far away from their businesses, they can bring it closer by the use of the videos. And currently, now that videos are really making everything so humane, so in front of people. So like, as much as we can't touch them, we can feel, we can show our reaction. At the same time, we can feel like we are there presently.
Yes, I love that. And, that saying, a picture says 1,000 words, but being able to sense and really get an experience as if you were there, there's nothing more that makes you go, you know what, we need to book our holiday there. I love that. Julian, talking about experience, and of course, AI adopted into, the way that we're sharing our message and of course, creating an experience with our ideal clients. One of the things that we hear time and time again being spoken about is this area of trust. And I know, Christina, you were talking about, celebrities, showcasing a product or service. We see through that. So businesses, to build trust is really important. Julian, I'd love you to share a little bit into what you're seeing, maybe from a point of view of what we should stop doing and start doing to build that brand trust, because trust, as we know, is part of that know, like, and trust for anyone to consider doing business with us. What are some of the trends you're seeing here?
Okay, so and on that subject, I guess, of artificial intelligence, when I think about what tools and platforms are genuine artificial intelligence, because I think often there's a lot of confusion as to, is this actually just a sophisticated algorithm and versus an actually kind of an intelligent platform or tool or software. Things like, I would say platforms like, let's say, Facebook, is fairly genuinely artificial intelligence, in that it really, is able to have a clear understanding of who their demographics are. They've got, who knows how many data points on each individual, and is able to do some pretty sophisticated targeting. Same with Google as an advertising platform. And then there's the more, I guess what you would call sort of automation tools. And so, yes, I think there's a huge sort of increase and use in that. And that, I think, is very specific to your question. And so what I generally advise people is as follows. I think it's great to put automation tools, obviously, because there's an efficiency to it. But the sort of warning I would say is this: it's great to humanize your technology, but don't do it at the risk of dehumanizing your brand.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, if anything, I almost find myself moving more and more towards classical networking. That at the end of the day, it really is, going back to Christina, about sort of creating authentic connections, very on a personal level, responding to somebody's post because it meant something to you and engaging with that person. That's just a lot more meaningful. And I think, exactly as to your point, that more and more people are going to recognize, okay, I've just been sent this message. Yes, it's been personalized to me. Yes, they've inserted my name. It looks and it feels like a personal message, but it's not, and I get it. And I think people are becoming more and more aware of that, and again, just turning off to it. I talk a lot about, I've been saying talking about for a few years about what I call the economy of authenticity. In that authenticity as a currency is sort of on the rise. Now, lately, I'm almost tired of the word. I feel it's being overused, almost as though people have almost like commoditized it as it's something that you can sell, where it's not. You're either real or you're not, and people can see through that. And so I think more and more, as I said, I think it's really going back to leveraging that.
Yeah. And Stanley has contributed a comment. I think we need to show levels of intelligence where the AI we now use has the same intelligent. Would one of the panelists like to add to that, or take that to the next level of what Stanley was saying? Do you agree?
I think I can speak to this. An agency I work also as, I have my own business, but I also work as a strategist for ICUC, and we don't do bots. We have actual monitoring. So if you are responding, complaining, or giving brand love to one of our clients, a human responds back to you. And we have response matrices where it's essentially an if this, then that. So if this is the kind of response, this is the behavior. But it's also very easy to fall into the trap of using the same canned response, because over time, especially if you respond quickly and efficiently, they assume you're a bot. And then when you say something that is kind of has that sort of like robotic tone and doesn't have any real feeling to it, they're going to assume you're a bot. So I completely agree with what Julian said. People they honestly want a mixture of both. They want the efficiency and the quick response of a bot, but they want that human who's going to understand the nuances of what they're saying and is going to be able to understand the urgency. A bot cannot understand the urgency unless they're looking at keywords or like specific times and things that they are like catchphrases that they need to be looking for. But a human, like AI, is not at the point yet where it's going to be able to understand context. And so depending on what your needs are, that bot sounds really cool until it can't take care of you. And then it's going to make you just as angry as a human that you feel doesn't have empathy for your needs.
Yeah. Janet, I'd love you to contribute to the conversation because, of course, you're from Nairobi. We have a multicultural panel here. And when we're talking about AI, there are just some nuances that's very difficult. There are just some things that you might say in a culture that's one culture may laugh and another may think is very offensive. So when we're looking at AI, then I think from what Julian and Christina were saying, I'd love for you to share what your thoughts are. We need to be mindful about where do we incorporate this in the customer journey? What can we automate to make it easy so that we can get information instantaneously to customers who are inquiring? And then we also need to be mindful of where do we not replace because we need a human there. Have you seen things working well, or what insights do you want to share? Do you agree with that? Love to hear your thoughts.
Okay, actually, I love the aspect of automation and AI. But when you look at the current marketing and how everything is changing every day and how us as consumers, we are consuming the content from brands, things are changing. As much as we can automate, there is something that might miss, and that is the human connection, the emotion, the reaction that can come out of whatever you answer as human beings. So I'm looking at AI as a very good advantage for most businesses, which feel like I won't be around to post at this time or to comment. Maybe as we are entering the festive season, most companies will try to not be so active on social media if they feel like they are not going to promote their brands or services during that period. So they might choose to have AI automation or the bots doing the work instead of them. But as much as we choose to use the AI, I believe the context, and I like the way you said it in terms of context. Context is very key. Context is important. Sometimes we might automate to an extent that they're answering the automation tools are answering what is not supposed to be answered. And in that aspect, you find customers become angry. They start getting back to the company with so much negative content. So the question is, how are we supposed to blend in the AI plus the human connection? So as much as we are going to holiday, social media will never go to holiday. So your business is never going to holiday. As much as you have a social media presence, any footprint on digital, you have to be there. At least have somebody on standby to remember you are not going to be on holiday all through. At least pop in sometime and answer some information or answer some queries of people that the AI cannot fit to answer or respond to the individuals.
Yeah, so true. I mean, and I think we've all heard of case studies where there has been a tragedy that has occurred in somewhere in the world. And then here we have organizations and companies that have all these automated tweets and posts saying things that are just completely inappropriate. And that's where you really need to have a human there to go, look, we need to stop what we've got on our feeds and start to, be part of that conversation if we choose to. That's so very, very important for sure. I'm just going to open the floor then for businesses who then are looking at integrating some form of AI, whether it be a chatbot to help get information instantly to their clients. Where can they start? What should they start with and ask as a question, as a brand, as a company, to be able to discern what can we automate, what can we use, and leverage a bot, say, and what do we need to keep in the human? Is that different for every business, or do you have kind of some insights and some of the things that you can start looking at automating and incorporating some of these tools? Who wants to share? And we can go around the panel for sure. Julian, did you maybe want to start?
Sure. I'll dive in with, and then try to answer two things, because I saw there was a follow-up question there about the level of intelligence. But quickly, so let me quickly answer your question there first. And chatbots has come up a couple of times. So ManyChats, for example, I think exactly with Facebook is a great tool, and yes, I think it's a great way to sort of triage those initial line of questioning that come in. As Christina was mentioning, exactly, there may be some standard type questions that will come in so that you're able to direct some of those, get some of those answers. And how do you humanize that? Well, maybe just use things like in those, because those are pre-scripted responses, throw in a GIF, throw in something that creates at least an emotional connection with people, and that's a way to use that. So that certainly I think is a number one kind of tool. And then going back to your question about, what should we, so you can reduce your let's say customer support staff with that. But I often again say that doesn't mean you should be getting rid of those people. If anything, you should be using those people now as your brand advocates, because if you start letting go all of your support staff, well, you've now just really turned a whole bunch of people into anti-brand advocates for you because they've now been laid off. So how can you now re-engage those people so that you're making your customer service better, so that they're really, for the people who have questions that can't be answered by the bots, that you're actually able to really engage in that conversation. And now quickly to answer the question about what level Stanley's question about what level are we at? So no, we're nowhere close to human, Stanley. We are, what I tend to say is this, we are at horse. And the reason why we're at horse is that there's this old psychology story where people, I forget what year this was, a long time ago, everyone was convinced that there was this one horse who knew how to count. And, his trainer would just sort of give him a number and he would go clop, 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 and go right to the number. And everyone was impressed. And all these people were very curious about it. Eventually, though, they realized that no, he didn't actually know how to count, but this horse had been able to pick up on very subtle micro gestures in the trainer that indicated to the horse, okay, I'm done. And so there was a recent only just a couple years back, where they had this little robot that it was an experiment in artificial intelligence, 4 little arms, and they teach it how to walk. Now, when they were plugging it in one day to experiment and to see how was it learning, what they realized was that this robot had figured that it was a great idea to train its cameras on the experimenters' faces for the exact same reason that Hans the horse, or whatever his name was able to pick up on micro gestures. So it had determined that was a great source of feedback and information, and was using that. It's certainly, artificial intelligence is beyond the point where even the programmers, because it's just algorithms built on top of algorithms, that even the programmers themselves don't really know how it's all working and what it's doing. So that's what I'm saying is, we're beyond an ant. We're not at a human level. I think it's going to be a very long time before we are at super intelligence, artificial intelligence. That's my take on that answer.
Yeah, fantastic. And he's just got a follow-up question here. So maybe Janet or Christina. Stanley says, when you get rid of workers, you do lose knowledge.
Yes.
And I think definitely that's so true. And as you said, Julian, it's not to use that technology and then get rid of your team, but rather use that team in other areas, which I think is really good too. Christina, I want to go to you and ask you to speak a little bit more into something that I know that you wrote a recent article about, and this was, and also within the social media 2020 trends, which we know the report was put together by Talkwalker and HubSpot. And you were saying, and here in Australia, the likes and Instagram, I think we were one of the first countries where Instagram took away the likes. And that typically, and I think you've mentioned, was really about vanity metrics. What are some of the metrics we should be monitoring very closely as businesses? And now that the vanity metrics are taken away, you say, we need to determine the real ROI of social media. So what would you say is the real ROI of social media?
Well, just like any business, it depends on your KPIs. It depends on your key performance indicators. And depending on the life cycle of your business, that answer is going to be different. If you just opened your doors yesterday, you need people to know you exist. Sales is great, but you're not there yet. So depending on your life cycle, it may just be, I need you to know that I'm open. I need you to know I'm open, and I need you to know where I am and what I offer and what I can do for you. And then it needs to be sales or conversions or leads and walking through that process. The thing that's interesting, though, is that the likes are hidden on the outside, but the influencer can still see their likes. They can still see the insights of how many people are liking their content and things of that nature. The problem is that because influencer marketing is still, in the marketing world, it's still a baby. I mean, it's not regulated as much as other advertising means. There's still a lot of brands who've tested it and tried it and spent a lot of money hoping that things were going to be great, but they're not. So just like anyone else, if you were to hire someone tomorrow, you would have, these are the things I expect you to be able to do. These are your goals. This is what I need you to be able to bring to us. So if you need someone to create awareness for you, then that's how many people are responding, how many people are going to your website from them. Are you using a tool like Later's LinkedIn Bio? I love Later. It was a paid version, now it's free. If you go later.com, they have a link in bio. So for your profile, what you can do is you can actually link individual pieces of your Instagram and say, I want this piece of content to go to this URL. So then you can track and you can see where things going. That's why fashion is doing some of the best work when it comes to influencer marketing, because the tool Like to Know It, because they're tagging all of those products, like the shoes that are in the picture or this coat, because it's attached to Like to Know It, if Macy's wants to work with you, they're going to be able to see that because of this tagged item and this influencer's post, there's a paper trail. So for everyone that loves marketing, I hope you love Tag Manager, because UTMs, tracking, like it is time for us to mature and really track. There needs to be a paper trail so that when you're charging $5,000, and granted, that's actually pretty cheap. When you're charging $5,000 for a post, what am I going to get for that? How many swipe ups, how many likes, how many sales? Like, how can I do that? And what's really interesting is Adam Mosseri, who's the lead of Instagram, he did an AMA. And the question was, like, getting rid of likes, how's that going to happen? And what are they going to have in return? And it was really interesting, his choice of words. I'm a deconstructionist, so the words you choose is very important to me. And he talked about how it's just as important to take away the likes as it is to focus on the metrics that they do show the outside world. And what I gathered from that is Facebook and Instagram realize that the metrics they make public, that, like, I can say whatever I want, but a business is going to say, well, Instagram's showing me this and Instagram is showing me that. And that becomes the metrics that we live by. And as long as we continue to have tools that can, and there's tools out there for influencers, so you can see kind of what's the health, how many influencers are real based on those behaviors? Do they have profile pictures? And Instagram's doing a lot to get rid of the bots. They realize that's a massive problem for engagement numbers. So I would expect and hope there's going to be more and more third-party tools that verify that these likes are real, these comments are real, these swipe ups are real. And that's why that trackable stuff is going to be so, so crucial. And like I said, that's why the fashion influencers that are doing the best, it's because there's a trackable way to get to the conversions they've been able to provide for you. So continue to see more of that, but it's the vanity metrics are going away. So we're looking at that ratio, like super base level. If you have someone that has an Instagram account and they have 50,000 followers, but they can't get more than 2,000 likes on a post, like there's someone in a basement who wants to see your content. They don't care. They'll like stuff. So really looking at that and also seeing like what's really working. One of the funniest things that's happening right now on Instagram is Twitter content is doing better. People are actually sharing tweets and putting them on there. Meme accounts, that's some of the best, most popular content on Instagram right now. So you're actually seeing this sharing. So you can find out like what are the most viral pieces of content on Twitter you're seeing on Instagram. And conversely, the biggest TikTok pieces, you're seeing them on Twitter. People are sharing them. It's this very, very interesting sharing ecosystem.
Yeah, I've seen some of those videos too from TikTok on Facebook, and they're doing incredible, and they are hilarious. which is interesting. So it's so important. Something that I would love you to share a little bit more on, Janet, if you would. One of the things in the Social Media Trends 2020 report was the rise. It said the rise of unique and niche networks shouldn't come as a surprise. People are no longer looking for large communities, but the relevant ones, less noise, more genuine engagement. And you've said that engagement and that real connection was really important to you. As businesses then moving forward in 2020 and beyond, if we're looking at that niche network, and we've of course just talked about TikTok, what as businesses should we start to become more aware of? And how do we navigate now moving from big, these big social networks where everyone was networking, to more niche markets? What are you seeing can work really well?
First of all, I like what Christina says. And in terms of now, I'll start it from the aspect of influencer marketing and the micros. We're currently trying to look at individuals who share genuinely other than the paid ones first. Because the paid are always looking at how many followers do I have, how many likes do I have, how many comments do I make, how many shares, retweets. To an extent now, we are focusing more on who is sharing without really knowing that it has the influence to make the other person like, comment, share, or talk about the brand or the products. So I'm looking at niche marketing as a very good way. And actually in Kenya, let me say, for instance, it has really tried to come up very well in that companies are realizing that instead of just picking any influencer, any individual to be your eye for the brand, for the products, they're trying to narrow it down. And the best way the young businesses can actually get to be part of the niche marketing, first of all, they have to identify the Facebook groups, the Twitter chats, the LinkedIn groups, that they feel like this is what I want to do. This is where my business operates within, and then be part of it. For instance, Twitter chats, let me talk about some popular Twitter chats like Twitter Smarter. I think everybody has already interacted with that chat. I love it so much, the fact that it actually gives you a chance to know more and more about Twitter. If you want to like launch your product there, at least you can learn the tips, because each and every time they have to get a guest who talks about Twitter tips or talks about something that is always related to Twitter. If you want to bring out your product there on Twitter in terms of launching or trending, you can easily find out even other influencers and micros and people who love to talk about that, who love to always get knowledge around the Twitter, at least to use them or ask them if they can be part of your campaign. And so niche marketing is coming out so strong to an extent that the brands themselves are realizing they've been wasting a lot of money sharing or giving to people who are just there to make noise and leave. Make noise and leave. I want retweets. These are the retweets I got. These are the numbers I got, without really focusing on how are you investing. Are you investing as a brand, or are you wasting yourself? Because you're looking at the end goal. As much as we say each and every brand has its own reason to why they're doing the campaign, maybe for brand awareness, maybe for leads, maybe for conversions and sales. At the end of the day, a company needs to pay the people who work under it. It has to sell out its products and services. At the same time, it has to grow and it has to be there. So who are you using? If you are a young business, focus on niche. Go to groups, ask people. So long as there are people within that niche, so long as there are people, they can be your competitors and who have already grown. But who said it's wrong to work with the competitor? Collaboration is really coming up very well in this generation of social media and technology. How are you going to collaborate with somebody who you almost have similar interests, but you are learning from them?
Yeah, so true. And I'm glad you brought up the topic of collaboration too, because that was something that I was going to open up to the panel too. But first, Julian, before we talk about collaboration, is there anything that you want to contribute to the conversation around niching? What have you seen happening that's working really well? Did you want to have some more insights to share?
Maybe just briefly. I mean, for me, it's actually in a way, it's funny. It is something that in a way I've almost struggled with, because of the fact that I've grown up in this very kind of multifaceted skill set. Can produce websites, do video production, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that was very difficult for me to say, okay, I wanted to niche down. but everything that both Christina and Jeanette are saying is absolutely valid. At the end of the day, when somebody's looking for something, they are looking for that person who is the expert in that specific thing. So, somebody says, okay, I feel like we need to up our game on YouTube videos. And, if let's say they're in financial services, well, who's the master in YouTube videos for financial services? So by niching down, you are certainly appealing to an audience that's going to be looking for that one specific thing that you're doing. Now, the downside of that is, you can, if you just do that, if you're just coming out of the gate and you just say, okay, I am a YouTube specialist for financial services, and then somebody else just really kind of comes in the game and becomes the big game player, then you're knocked out. Or if that platform, let's say starts to age, or for whatever reason, you've got all your eggs in one basket. And so this goes back to sort of what Janet is saying, is that, we're seeing the rise of the gig economy. I've been, when I first started my agency, I would say what they call white labeling was almost like a dirty word. And now people are kind of coming around to it. I think they're okay with it in the sense that, I have no problem nowadays. I feel quite comfortable saying I white label with other agencies. There are tons of areas, Twitter is not my platform. I don't personally like it, but that doesn't mean that I don't see people like yourself and Keith Keller, for example, absolutely thriving on it. So that's great. He's sort of a go-to person. Or, for example, Casey Lane Millhouse Singh is somebody who I go to when it comes to GIFs and now augmented reality. So there's been lots of instances exactly where I will I've white labeled with people sort of both ways at the same time. I'm working on a client of theirs, they're helping me with a client of mine, and this is the new economy. It's really almost like a village economy in the old days of, okay, somebody somebody made the laces and somebody else made the shoes, and then we kind of put that together, and then we traded it with the person who made the candles. It's a village economy in the way that it always used to be, but on a global scale.
Yeah, I love that you've shared that. And Christina, would love for you to add to the conversation. Before we move on to you, there's something that I had a discussion a while ago now with one of my colleagues who's a professor, and he teaches about entrepreneurship here in Australia. And one of the things that he recognises, if we look at Australia and even the large corporations, they're they're not as averse as far as collaborating as, say, some of the other countries. And I'm talking about bigger businesses where you've got, experts in certain industries that have recognized, look, we cannot contribute to the world as a whole if we are in our own silos and we're not looking at sharing so that we can come together and provide a deeper and more robust product or service, or wherever that their industry lies. So I think moving forward and picking up on your point, Julian, and we'll open up to the panel, perhaps Christina, is that some businesses who do embrace collaboration don't look at competitors as competitors, but rather, can we work together, provide a much broader service so that clients don't have to work with multiple, individuals or companies and not have that unity there. I think that is going to be the next, well, not myself, but from what I hear, that I think that is going to be a really good and solid strategy moving forward for businesses. So they're seen maybe as under the one umbrella, but can provide multiple services, tap into the expertise, but they're multiple businesses contributing that. What have you seen happening in that space, Christina? Do you think that's what they're...
I think absolutely, because I would say probably like the benchmark for this is HubSpot. HubSpot does a beautiful job of acquiring, but also working with their peers. And because of that, what they're doing is they are taking the customer first, because just like with Julian's work, when he's doing white label content, you're not stealing from each other. What you're doing is you're removing friction from the client. That's one less thing the client has to worry about. And just like anything, if you were gonna get a new iPhone or an Android or a new computer, you're gonna want something that has the most features, that can offer you the most, that talks to the most tools. You want something that's gonna be fully integrated, because that's going to create a more frictionless and more enjoyable experience for you. So when it comes down to just user experience in general, by being able to collaborate freely and understand that it's community over competition. I think that in my experience, the people I've seen be the most territorial are the ones who they made that harder on themselves because of that. I'm particularly a huge fan of Twitter. I've found my tribe on Twitter, and you would be shocked at how many times you'll reach out to someone. Keith is a great example. Keith could be horrible and territorial and say, like, I have all these followers and I have this voice and I'm not going to help you, but he is the exact opposite. He shares willingly, like more than I don't know how he sleeps. But he shares, and he chooses to use his voice to amplify others so that brands and clients and businesses and other potential and future thought leaders can have a say. And so HubSpot and Keith are kind of just like poster children for you can actually put yourself and elevate yourself higher by helping others. It's a rising tides lift all boats.
Lifts all ships. Yeah.
It's so like that.
Yeah. And it's so much more fun, isn't it? Because we can't know everything. And in a conversation, someone mentions something and all of a sudden, you know, that sparks an idea that you would never have thought of. And then working together, collaborating, you know, the expertise, I think can end up with a product offering that could not have been achieved had you only been working by yourself. So Janet, let's talk to you about sort of the niche market, the collaboration. And I want to share with you, someone reached out. As you can imagine, I have a number of podcasts, so I'm often getting hundreds of emails and requests. Can I come on your podcast? But what's interesting, and I would love us all to maybe, and start with you, Janet, how you would define collaboration, because how I was approached was, I'd love to collaborate with you by coming on your show. Can I come on your show? Now, to me, that's not really collaboration. That's can I come on your show? So how would you define collaboration?
As I look at it from Sparks Corporates, I look at it from a point where you're not neutral, or you're not making the market feel like you have so many brands that are giving the same services, other than having one strong brand that is giving a 360 kind of services.
Yes.
In this aspect, I look at digital marketing alone. For instance, at Sparks Corporates, we are a corporate, and at the same time, we cooperate as a team. This is what I mean. The founder of Sparks Corporates was into filming, production, and content creation for script writing. And then here I was trying to come up with a new product that is digital marketing, because as per current, digital marketing is kind of new to Kenya and in Africa at large. So we're trying to, it's like we are advancing our traditional brands, our traditional PR firms, to at least understanding or being part of the digital world and incorporate digital marketing as one of it. So I have this brand, Digital Marketing, and they have TV production. They want to be on the digital space. They had already slotted in digital marketing like a branch, a sub-service that they were supposed to deliver. And then here I've already grown my audience. I've already identified what I want to do. I have a background of media. And so digital marketing for me, it was easier because it's like just using now the knowledge in class to integrate it with the digital marketing and then learn few things on the digital industry so that you can at least be at par. So I'm trying to create my own brand, and they already have theirs. And then I realized I have a shortage. As much as I can want to create a digital marketing firm, I will need to create content. And this content, if you look at the new trends, video is one of them. I don't have any equipment. I don't have even money on to buy of any equipment, because you know very well the cameras are very expensive, and you need a good camera if you want to go and shoot for a live streaming session, for a workshop or a launch of any product. You need to at least buy in. Either you hire in or you choose to buy, which is very expensive for my side. So what we did, we were like, okay, why can't we, instead of having two brands, you're giving 50%, I'm giving 50% of the services, and we come together, we give 100%. In that, if a client approaches me, I'm comfortable saying we don't only offer digital marketing strategies, content creation. We can as well create content in videos, cover your event. At the same time, if you want a commercial ad, we can shoot it for you. So I'm looking at it from the aspect of you are not so greedy to look at yourself and yourself alone. Look at what kind of ripple effect can you create, not only within your company, but having a larger company that can create more job opportunities, that you can gain more and you can give more to the businesses other than half. Because it's very expensive actually for brands to have different firms doing the same thing, almost the same thing.
Yeah. And I know, Julian, one of the things that people weren't privy to, but in your introduction, you were saying how you are actually got a skill set in being able to be that multifaceted. And I'm like that too, actually. I could not imagine just doing one thing. I get bored too quickly and I love learning. So, and I think what Janet's has just said, look at opportunities, maybe areas where you can bring someone in to provide their level of expertise in an area that you can provide a greater product or service. And again, thinking about the customer, which is what you said, Christina, for sure. Look, I know that we have only just scratched the surface. There's so many different areas I think that we can continue to take this. However, the conversation doesn't just stop here. So for people who are listening and watching, either live or certainly the recording, what I'd love for each of you to do, and Julian, we'll start with you, maybe share one last insight to sum that all up, whatever that may be. It may be something that you're speaking and regularly sharing with your community. So if we do that, one last insight, and then of course we'll go around the group again and share how best that people can connect with you to find out more about what you do, and then we'll finish up. So Julian, what would be one last insight that you would share with people today?
Oh, geez, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
I'm gonna actually cheat, and I'm gonna say two. One is just simply that there's two. One quick little trend that I've been noticing. So Facebook has just recently unveiled this personal health tools. Google just purchased Fitbit, so that's a bit of an indication to me that personal fitness and is something that they are seeing, therefore, as a huge trend. Health and well-being, I think, is something that they're looking ahead towards. And actually, these do tie in together, really. So something that I started to talk about at least a year ago, maybe more about that, is what I sort of have identified as the movement of meaning. In other words, I think that, in the initial early days of social media, there was this, let's say, culture of narcissism, right? And all the people were using, it was all about that sort of preservation of self, presentation of self. People who are still doing this, spending maybe an hour in the mirror, getting that perfect selfie. Here's my spaghetti, everybody, before I eat it. And it's that kind of stuff is meaningless, right? I mean, it doesn't, and I think that what we've seen this, socially around the world, we're seeing this sort of rise in depression. So it's this weird kind of phenomenon in that the technology in some ways connects us all more and yet makes people feel more isolated. Well, part of that, again, has to do, I think, with that false presentation of self, people looking at that, comparing themselves to it, feeling like, okay, why does everybody else always seem totally happy and their lives are amazing and I'm not there? So this goes back to the movement of meaning. Look at what we're doing here is we are connecting. We are having real, authentic conversations. We see this rise of long form content, that assumption that, okay, people, your video has to be 30 seconds long or, people will tune it out. Well, yes and no, not necessarily. If you're producing meaningful conversations, if you're using this technology in a way that is meaningful, that will lead to sort of healthier, more success, healthier minds, healthier lives. And I think this is what we're starting to kind of wrap our heads around now that we've passed through that initial sort of shock and wonder and, oh, look at what I can do with this technology. It's how do we use this to improve our lives, achieve greater success. That would be my insight.
I love that. And I read somewhere, hashtag digital detox, which is again around health and wellness. We need to unplug at times. Christina, what about you? Thanks, Julian. I love that. What would be one last insight that you would want to leave with everyone today?
I would say that businesses, both small and large, at the very beginning, they want so much attention and they want an audience and they want people to pay attention to them and speak to them and really kind of grow that brand and help them be a part of that journey. But then, and getting back to the bot situation, as soon as these brands have a digital footprint and people actually start talking to them, they're thinking, well, this is too much work. How can I find a bot that can do this for me? And so I love what Drift is doing right now. They have a bot. You can try it for free and see if it works for you. It's really great for websites, but they have something called conversational marketing. And so their bot is not this like Staples easy button that just gets rid of everything for you. It's how can you use it to be efficient? And then going back to one of Julian's earlier points, how can we take care of the easy questions so that we can have more time spent on the hard, in the thick of it, for the people who genuinely need a human to help them? And I'm a huge fan of social listening. Maybe it's because I'm nosy, curious, whatever you want to call it, but I love social listening. And so many people think about the bad reviews and the bad comments, but every single person is online because they want to be seen, they want to be heard, for better or for worse. And so when you see someone complaining or saying something about your brand, they want to be heard. And there is an opportunity for you to be there to either save a relationship, strengthen a relationship, find out what's wrong with a product or service. There's so much opportunity there for you to improve yourself, your services, your brand, your relationship to that person. And I'm seeing some brands killing it. They're doing a great job, but I'm seeing other brands who have still not figured out social yet, and they just think it's a sales platform. I'm just going to put my sales, I'm just going to tell them where my website is, and why are they not liking all my content? Well, you're speaking at them.
Yeah.
You're not speaking to them. It's not back and forth. And so once they've got that relationship, it's a relationship. You got to go back and forth. Don't be that person on the date that just talks about themselves. You have to ask them questions, get to know them.
Yeah.
That was great. That's a great answer.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, and how many opportunities have we had, or situations where we have had to sadly go to a company because we weren't given something that was expected. However, how they responded just blew you away, so much so that you can't stop but start sharing, about that experience, and you would never not go back, to that company. So very true. And now that it's open, people are talking about your brand, whether you choose to believe it or not. And if you're doing that open, you're not contributing and you're not taking control of that, then the conversation is going to go without you, and sadly, in a lot of instances, negatively. So love that. Thanks, Christina. Janet, what would be one last insight you'd like to share with people?
I'm looking at social media marketing as a place, or rather a platform, where every business will love to be there in future. It's like long time ago, we used to have telephones. We couldn't carry them anywhere. Currently, we have mobiles. We walk anywhere with them. We talk anything about our brand anywhere, wherever we are. And then I'm looking at social media as a place where not only you as a young brand, or rather a young business looking at hiring in, but always looking at your employees. How can you make your employees be the micro influencers? Talk about your brand. Cut the costs of trying to invest, or rather spending a lot of money in paying influencers from outside, paying agencies to work for you, but create a narrative, a brand story within the people around or within your brand.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love that. So true, which is a whole other topic that we could certainly talk about, and to make sure you hire the right people, because we can see fake as so easily, and we've spoken about that before. So people who really are aligned with your brand, love what you stand for, and continues to tell that story in a very natural way because it's very authentic to them. All right. Thank you so much, panel, for sharing your expertise today. I know I certainly can take away some great insights, and of course Stanley is saying great insights too. But what I want you to do before we all leave is just go around the table again, if you will, and Julian, just share a little bit more about what you do, how people can connect with you to find out more.
Okay. So 360 Digital Marketing Solutions. My agency is called JD Nevins Communications. I also have a YouTube channel and podcast called BIYF Marketing. And I'm also the founder of the Marketing Summit Academy. So one thing that perhaps makes my agency a little unique is that we are not so gung-ho on retainer contracts. We're very happy to teach and train our customers to take control of their social media themselves, empower their employees, and train teams to do that. So that's why I created the Academy as well. And you can find links to all of those on my personal page, which is iamjulian.space.
Fantastic. Thanks, Julian. Christina.
I work as a digital strategist for ICUC Social. You can find us at icuc.social. And I do brand Bibles, strategy packages. I work through response matrices, work to train, and work with our content specialists who are the ones who are responding. If you're saying something positive or negative and how they should respond. I create playbooks for paid and organic efforts. So we're making sure that we're matching up what the content needs to look like, what the campaigns need to look like, what KPIs are, and kind of what those individual pieces need to be. So basically a punch list for everything that needs to work on that. I work with a few Fortune 500 brands now. And then I also, as my side gig, I work with nonprofits and small businesses. So I kind of get to use that Fortune 500 that lens, but with a bootstrapped budget, which I really love because it challenges me and I can really see like what's actually possible. And my individual brand is Marketing Media Maven. You can find me on Twitter. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn, but my favorite is Twitter. And you can find me at that Christina G.
Fantastic. Thanks, Christina. And Janet.
I work with Sparks Corporate as a partner and a director of digital marketing. You can actually find us on all the platforms, Sparks Corps. On the best way actually is just Googling our URL, that is our website, sparkscorporates.com. And another thing is you can actually check on #AfricaT-shirt. That is a new community we have been actually working around and sharing content on digital marketing within Africa, because we believe very well, as much as Africa is really coming up very well on the digital, there is an aspect of training and impacting now the knowledge, conversations, and building stories that are from Africa themselves. So we thought it would be nice to have a community where we share our story in our different ways and our unique way. So AfricaT-shirt, we are actually, I like the fact that Julian talked about an academy. I'm always in that route. We are creating an academy called ATC Academy from AfricaT-shirt because we thought it was becoming so big and there was a need, and people kept on asking, do you do trainings? How can we learn? How can we engage with you? So we are yet to launch our academy. That is next year, God willing. We are finalizing some A/B testing before we launch it so that at least we don't have to go live and then everything goes blah.
Well, thank you all for coming. We said some of the things that we spoke about today, we've just scratched the surface, and you know everything that that is happening. I think we need to, as businesses, keep our finger on the pulse. What's relevant for our business? We need to be mindful from our consumers, our customer, our potential customers' point of view, and value authenticity, value collaborations. I think is so very important moving forward. So thanks once again for coming on the show.
Thanks
for having us.
Thank you.
Bye.